It's time to learn about some secret experiments from World War II, from the US military to Nazi Germany. These are some of the most interesting stories that have never been told before. So get ready for some mind-blowing facts that you probably didn't know about. Operation Whitecoat. During World War II, the US military conducted a series of secret experiments on humans without their knowledge or consent. One of the most disturbing was Operation Whitecoat, which involved infecting soldiers with dangerous diseases like anthrax, mustard gas, and tularemia. The goal was to study the effects of these weapons on the human body and develop treatments to counter them. But the experiments were brutal and often resulted in death or serious injury. Soldiers were deliberately exposed to deadly pathogens, sometimes multiple times, and they were denied medical care so that researchers could observe the progression of the disease. Many of the soldiers died horrible deaths, suffering from high fevers, organ failure, and massive internal bleeding. Some of the survivors were left permanently disabled with symptoms like blindness, paralysis, and severe respiratory problems. It wasn't until decades later that the US government declassified these experiments and acknowledged the atrocities that had been committed. The families of the victims fought for years to get compensation for their loved ones, but many of them died before ever seeing any justice. Nazi Germany's Dachau concentration camp was one of the first and most infamous of the Nazi concentration camps, housing more than 200,000 prisoners between 1933 and 1945. But what most people don't know is that it was also a center for secret medical experimentation. Prisoners were subjected to a variety of horrific tests, including being locked in rooms with lethal gas chambers to study the effects of different gases on the human body. Doctors would then record their observations on the symptoms and duration of their suffering. They also tested the use of Zyklon B pellets, made of the chemical compound hydrocyanic acid, as a pesticide and delosing agent on lice-infested clothing. And perhaps even more disturbingly, they used prisoners to test the effectiveness of high-altitude jumps on the human body, essentially using them as human guinea pigs. In fact, this practice led to one of the most famous experiments ever conducted at Dachau, the high-altitude test of a V-2 rocket. On November 1944, 4 test subjects were strapped to a V-2 rocket and launched into the sky. But something went wrong during the flight, and the rocket malfunctioned, crashing back down to Earth and killing all 4 test subjects. Despite the horrific nature of these experiments, they continued throughout the war, and it was until the camp was liberated by the Allies in 1945 that they finally came to an end. Unit 731. Unit 731 was a top-secret Japanese military research and development unit that operated during the Second World War. It was responsible for some of the most horrific and unethical experiments ever carried out on human beings. Based in the northeastern part of China, Unit 731's primary objective was to develop biological and chemical weapons for use against China and other countries. To achieve this, they conducted experiments on living beings, including humans, which is where things get really dark. Unit 731's main victims were Chinese, Korean, and Russian people who were captured during the war and taken to the unit's facilities. There they were subjected to vivisection, meaning they were cut open while still alive to study the effects of different weapons and diseases on the human body. They also conducted experiments to test the effectiveness of different types of bullets, bombs, and other weapons, as well as the effects of extreme temperatures and radiation. In addition to these experiments, Unit 731 was also responsible for developing plague bombs, which were designed to spread disease and infection through fleas. These bombs were tested on civilian populations in China, resulting in thousands of deaths. What's truly horrifying is that many of these experiments were carried out without anesthesia, and the victims were kept alive through the use of morphine, which is still considered torture under international law. As you might expect, the existence of Unit 731 was kept top secret during and after the war, and it wasn't until 1972 that the United States discovered the full extent of their activities. Even then, the Japanese government refused to acknowledge the unit's existence, until 1995 when they declassified documents detailing its operations. The Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was a top-secret research and development program that took place during World War II with the goal of developing the first atomic weapon. Led by the United States with support from the United Kingdom and Canada, The project was initiated in response to the threat posed by Nazi Germany and their research into nuclear weapons. The project involved a huge effort with over 130,000 people working on it and cost over $2 billion in today's money. The main research was carried out at 3 main sites: Los Alamos, New Mexico; Oak Ridge, Tennessee; and Hanford, Washington. Los Alamos was the location of the main laboratory where scientists led by J. Robert Oppenheimer worked to develop the atomic bomb. Oak Ridge was responsible for producing the components of the bomb, such as the graphite-moderated reactor and electromagnetic separation plant for uranium isotopes, while Hanford was responsible for developing the plutonium production reactors. The culmination of the Manhattan Project was the Trinity test on July 16, 1945, which successfully created the world's first atomic weapon. However, the secrecy surrounding the project meant that very few people knew about it until it was too late. Even the people who worked on it had to keep quiet about their involvement until the project was officially announced in 1946. After the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world was forever changed, and the implications of the Manhattan Project continue to be felt today. Nazi Germany's Vergeltungswaffe program. The Vergeltungswaffe program was a secret weapons development project of Nazi Germany during World War II, best known for producing the V-1 and V-2 missiles, which were the first ever guided missiles. The program was initiated in 1937 under the direction of Hitler, who wanted to develop new and innovative weapons to be used against the Allies. The V-1 was a rudimentary flying bomb that was powered by a pulse jet engine and could carry a small explosive payload. It was designed to be launched in large numbers by a modified Heinkel He-111 bomber and was intended to cause terror and destruction in London and other British cities. Although the V-1 was relatively inaccurate, it caused significant damage and casualties and played a role in the Battle of Britain. However, it was eventually replaced by the more advanced V-2 rocket, which was a ballistic missile that could travel much further and faster and cause even more devastation. The V-2 was a marvel of engineering for its time and is considered to be the first true ballistic missile. It was launched from a variety of platforms, including mobile ground launchers, aircraft, and submarines, and was capable of reaching targets over 200 miles away. The V-2 was extremely destructive and caused widespread damage and casualties throughout the war. Despite their effectiveness as weapons, both the V-1 and V-2 were ultimately unsuccessful in achieving their military objectives. The Vergeltungswaffe program remains an important part of military history and has had a lasting impact on the development of modern weapons technology. The CIA's MKUltra program. The CIA's MKUltra program was a top-secret project that took place during the Cold War era with the aim of controlling the minds of both enemy agents and the general public. The program involved a variety of techniques and methods, including hypnosis, brainwashing, and the use of LSD and other drugs to manipulate behavior. One of the most infamous aspects of MKUltra was the use of LSD as a truth serum. The CIA believed that by dosing individuals with large amounts of the drug, they would be able to extract information from them, even if they had no memory of the event. However, this proved to be largely ineffective, and instead led to a number of bizarre and unpredictable results. The program also involved experiments on mind control and behavior modification, which were often carried out on unsuspecting subjects. For example, one experiment involved dosing individuals with LSD and then placing them in situations where the CIA hoped to observe changes in their behavior. In some cases, subjects were given LSD without their knowledge and then monitored to see how they reacted. Other experiments involved the use of hypnosis and other techniques to influence behavior and extract information. Although MKUltra was officially terminated in 1973, the full extent of the program's activities was not revealed until the 1990s. The program's legacy continues to be debated and discussed today, with some believing that it was a necessary tool for protecting national security and others seeing it as a gross violation of human rights. These secret experiments from World War II are a reminder of the lengths to which some governments will go to achieve their goals. From infecting soldiers with deadly diseases to developing the first atomic weapon, these stories are sure to send chills down your spine. What do you think about these stories? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.